Okay, let's unpack this a bit. We all start building things, right? And when something goes wrong, that first instinct is often just, log some text to the console.
Yeah, absolutely. Console.log. It's the hammer for every nail when you're starting out, or even just for quick checks locally.
Exactly. Quick, easy, it works. But then, what happens when your application gets bigger? Or you need to understand not just that something broke, but why or how often.
hmm That's where that basic console logging really starts to show its limitations. The material we looked at highlights this perfectly.
Because it's just a text, right? Unstructured.
Precisely. Imagine trying to automatically parse maybe a million lines of just arbitrary strings.
Yeah.
Well, it's incredibly difficult for machines.
hmm
You get the messages, sure, but the crucial context.
Like what state the app was in, or which user saw the error.
Exactly. That context is often missing, or it's just tangled up in the text itself. You're not just trying to find an error anymore. You need to pinpoint this specific user's bad experience, maybe trace that particular request.
And with plain text logs, good luck connecting those dots reliably across a distributed system.
You're pretty much flying blind in that scenario.
Hmm.
And there's a performance angle, too, which sometimes gets overlooked initially.
Oh, how so?
Well, console.log calls, particularly in environments like Node.js, can be synchronous operations, writing directly to standard output synchronously over and over again in a high-traffic app.
Uh-oh. Sounds like a bottleneck.
It definitely can be. It can introduce noticeable latency. Plus, the way console.log actually formats the output can sometimes vary slightly between, say, different operating systems or even node versions. Minor inconsistencies, but they add up.
Okay, so it's clear we need something more robust, something built for this. The discussion points towards dedicated logging libraries, yeah.
Definitely. That's the next logical step. They provide the structure and the features you need for, let's call it, industrial strength logging.
Like moving from sticky notes to a proper database index.
That's a great analogy. Think libraries like Winston or Pinot or Bunyan. Winston, for example, is often highlighted for its flexibility. It uses this concept of transports.
Transports, you mean like sending logs to different places?
Exactly that. With Winston, you can configure it to send the same log message to multiple destinations simultaneously, maybe to the console for you during development,
Okay.
but also write it to a file for archiving and send any errors straight to a centralized logging service like Splunk or Datadog for your production monitoring.
Ah, so you tailor where logs go based on how important they are or what environment you're in. That makes a lot of sense.
And it supports different log levels too, right? Like debug, info, warn, error.
Yes, absolutely fundamental. You use these levels to signal the importance. Debug might be super detailed, only useful when you're coding info for general workflow, like user logged in.
Right. Warn for things that seem off but aren't critical failures, and error for, well, actual errors. This lets you filter noise. Maybe you run with debug locally, but in production, you only output info and above to keep the log volume manageable.
Okay, so Winston gives us flexibility, levels, destinations, but you mentioned performance bottlenecks earlier. What about speed? Some tools really emphasize that.
Right, and that's often where a library like Pinot enters the conversation. It's really designed from the ground up for minimal overhead, very high performance.
How does it achieve that?
Its default output format is JSON, just raw JSON strings. Now, that's not always the prettiest thing to read directly in your terminal,
No, probably not.
but it's very machine-friendly. And you typically use Pinot with companion tools like Pinot Pretty, which can format that JSON nicely for you during development when a human needs to read it.
Ah, I see. So Pinot's optimizing for that structured machine-readable output right away, prioritizing speed. Any other key players?
Bunyan is another well-regarded library that follows a similar structured JSON logging approach. The really consistent theme here, the core idea, is this shift towards structured logging.
Structured logging. Okay, define that for us. It's not just text strings anymore.
Exactly. Instead of just logging, say, failed to process order, a structured log entry is essentially a data object, usually JSON.
So like curly braces and key value pairs.
Precisely. It might look something like level, error, message, failed to process order, ordered, ABC123, user id 456, service, order processor, timestamp. You get the idea.
Oh, wow. Okay. And that's where the real power for analysis comes in, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's the magic.
Yeah.
Because that structured format is instantly digestible by log management systems, you can easily search, filter, aggregate data based on any of those fields.
So you could ask questions like, show me all errors for user 456 in the last hour.
Exactly. Or graph the count of database timeout errors in the order processor service over the last day.
Ah.
You can even add unique IDs, sometimes called correlation IDs, to trace a single user's request as it jumps between different microservices.
Ah, end-to-end visibility. That's huge. Almost impossible with just plain text logs jumbled together.
Very difficult, yes. This data-centric approach turns logging from just a debugging tool into a powerful source of operational intelligence. And as a side benefit, it encourages you to think carefully about what data you're logging, helping avoid accidentally logging sensitive information.
It really is fascinating. Moving beyond simple console messages isn't just about finding bugs after they happen. It seems like it transforms logging completely.
It's proactive.
Yeah. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, using structured logs, getting the levels right, adding that crucial context like user IDs or request IDs, it means you're not just reacting to errors anymore, you're actively monitoring your application's health, understanding its behavior in production in real time.
You gain much deeper insights.
Which leads to a really important question, I think, for you listening. How can you start using structured logs not just to find problems faster, but maybe to anticipate and prevent them before they even impact your users? Something to think about.